Gordon Firemark. It's Dean Reynolds Media Live, baby. And welcome back to the stream, Dean Reynolds Media Live. I am your host, Dean Reynolds, DMCA. What is DMCA? Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And I don't want to lose time with this gentleman because he's so knowledgeable. He is an attorney out of California, and I want to bring him on. This is his second time on the show, and I'm super excited. Mr. Gordon Firemark.
Hey, Dean. Hi. Thanks for having me, man. It's great to be back.
Yeah, man. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Of course.
I would say you were on the show close to what, 2 years ago? Well, no.
Seems like it's about right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. I don't think it's definitely was not 2020. And if it's 2019, it's early 2019. So somewhere there about
a lifetime ago.
Yeah, and so DMCA Gordon has really, it seems like people that have gotten away with using copyrighted music on like Twitch or let's say YouTube or Facebook. If no one files a DMCA, then sometime that music or that content sort of lives longer. But if someone files a DMCA, then what? They like a Twitch or a YouTube, they have to take it down until that gets sorted in court. But before we jump into that, what exactly is DMCA, Mr. Attorney?
So DMCA stands for Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and it is a law that was passed around, I think it was passed right before the turn of 2000. So the digital millennium, here we were. And the idea behind the law was to make it possible for companies like YouTube and Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch and all these others that host user content, user-generated content, to do that without being afraid of getting sued out of existence. The idea was to foster these companies and allow them to grow without that big fear. So what it does is in the Copyright Act, Section 512 is the DMCA. It actually creates a safe harbor that says, hey, let's use YouTube as an example. Hey, YouTube, if you host user-generated content, you will not be subject to a lawsuit for copyright infringement by a copyright owner if you have a policy that allows for them to notify you that there's an infringing bit of content and you take it down. And you also have to have a registered DMCA agent for service of process, which is, file a form and you name the person who gets that message. And then, so you have to have this mechanism also to deal with people who are repeat infringers so that you don't just constantly have them churning this stuff up and down. So the way the mechanism works is the owner of the copyright sends a notice in a particular form with a particular details laid out in the form and says, hey, YouTube, this thing over here, take it down. It's infringing my copyright. Then YouTube takes it down. They have to do it fairly quickly. And then they notify the person who posted it and say, hey, we took your video down because we got a DMCA takedown notice. Okay. You have an opportunity to rebut that and say, here's why it should stay up. Once they file that counter notification, the video goes back up and YouTube is out of it. They just say, okay, you guys go fight it out and let us know. As long as we don't have repeat infringers getting taken down, all the time, they're good to go. So YouTube is they were on the receiving end of a big lawsuit from Viacom years back, and they have since implemented their content ID system that sort of flags the stuff early, so they don't even have to wait for the notification from the owner.
Oh, wow! So if that happens, then YouTube leaves those people alone to work that out in courts, and how would the
lets you and him fight?
but how would YouTube be notified to put that content back up if once that case gets resolved?
They don't wait till it gets resolved. It goes right back up as soon as the poster files a counter notice that says, hey, I think it's fair use, or I think it's licensed, or whatever. They put it back up, And then YouTube just says, okay, we're washing our hands of the problem. You guys go sort it out. And then if the court says it is infringement, then that gets filed with YouTube and they take it down permanently.
Oh my goodness. So, all right. So if you're just joining us, we have on the line right here, attorney Gordon Firemark. We're talking about DMCA, Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Now, if someone, let's say Twitch, because Twitch has been removing videos, I've heard people that have uploaded for 7 years, 5 years, 2 years, and they don't get any warning at all. Those things are just taken down. Now, why does it take so long for these things to happen? Is it like they now have a system in place, or these are just random people filing DMCAs?
Well, you know, Twitch was one of these these services that was sort of flying under the radar for quite a while, and the owners of the content never realized or thought about the fact that their music was showing up there. You know, it's one thing for, you know, because Twitch is so video game oriented. Right. It's one thing for the music in the game to be, you know, the streamer is using to be recorded and put out there. Also, Twitch purports to be a live stream service, not a recorded content service. But it's one thing for the music in the game. But what the players, the streamers, started doing is creating their own soundtrack for their streaming. And they'd be playing their favorite music in the background while they're doing their thing, and it would all be part of that stream and recording. So when the pop music started showing up in that way, the music industry took notice, kind of slowly. They were slow off the blocks on that one, but they took notice and they started sending DMCA takedown notices. And then my understanding is what happened is that late last summer, Twitch started receiving a sudden influx of thousands and thousands of these per day, these DMCA takedown notices. So it went from a few dozen a month to thousands or hundreds of thousands in a fairly short amount of time. You know, they were stretched to their resources were stretched. And so they had to do something about it quickly. So what they did was they sent a notice to all the streamers and saying, hey, you got, I think it was like 3 days or a weekend or something to figure out what's here, what should stay and what should go. And if you don't, we will. And then they took everything down. They took all of people's content libraries down of content that had music in it.
So basically, all right. So what if the music actually belongs to me, but John Brown thinks it's his, and of course he files the DMCA. So now Twitch, well, now YouTube, because Twitch will probably just take it down, you know, and that's it. YouTube takes it down. Now I'm in court trying to prove that this thing belongs to me, and however that takes, like how like, what's the process, man? There has to be a process for my stuff. Like, I own this stuff because I've gotten those calls. I've literally gotten those calls like, Dean, I actually own this song, and I've gotten a copyright strike or a copyright claim on my own stuff. Yeah. So like, what's the solution here?
Well, a couple things. There are consequences for a person who abuses the DMCA system. So if somebody falsely claims that they own something, you know, maliciously, falsely claims that they own something and take your video down, and you can prove that they did it without any reasonable sense of that being real, there are consequences. You can sue them for damages, for example, and a couple of big companies got hit with that pretty hard early on. But what's going on with YouTube is an interesting thing, because the false positive, you know, they have this automated system, this content ID system. And what's happening is if I make a video and I use a piece of your music, maybe, or my own music, whatever, with your permission, and I post it, that gets slurped into this database of stuff and identified with me, even though it's your music. And then when you post a video with your same music in it, the system says, wait a minute, we've already got this in the database. It must be infringing. And they send you that notice. And so then that's your opportunity to say, hey, no, YouTube, actually, it's my music. And the hard part is, how do you prove it?
Yeah, that was my next question. What would be the thing that proves? I mean, even though we might have paperwork or so, would that suffice?
Well, you file that counter notification. You say, no, it's my music. I'm allowed to do that. And then is John Brown going to sue? Am I going to sue you because you used your own music in something? You know, if it's not malicious, it's just an accident. That's the end of it. Your stuff goes back up and it's over. The problem is it's still a set of steps you shouldn't have to go through just because someone else posted something first that had your thing in it. The other problem is if you do need to speak to someone, who do you speak to? You can't get a hold of anybody most of the time.
At all. Yes.
Unless you've got that gold or silver or platinum YouTube logo hanging on your wall, they're not paying much attention to you when you call.
True.
So that's a challenge. And unfortunately, you just have to be persistent and persevere. It's hard.
Now, there's a lot of problem also going on, Gordon, with like these paid services. There's Epidemic Sound, and then there's Sound Strip, and there's Artists, and there are a bunch of those. And you might use some of them for a few months. Of course, if you stop paying for the service, then you tend to get these copyright claims. But I've heard people complain like they don't have the proper system in place, so they still get copyright claimed and their music is still taken down. Like, what are your thoughts on these paying services?
Well, I don't know that much about all these different paid services that you named, but what I'll say, it is a challenge. It is a problem to, how do you how do you post something at the time you're posting it? There's no checkbox or form field to enter where, yes, I have a license for this and here's a URL or here's an upload of the file. I think YouTube could make it pretty easy to do that by just saying, if you have licensed music here, post the URL to your license code number or whatever, and then they would be able to just confirm it's a valid license. Something that mechanism doesn't strike me as being too much trouble for these systems to develop, but they just haven't done it yet. And yeah, I hear a lot of complaints from, hey, I post my video and I know I have the permission to use this song, and here it is. I've got a piece of paper, but how do I tell them that? So I have to wait for them to do a takedown so I can get it put back up and respond by saying I have a license. That's stupid. And bottom line, it's stupid. Hey, YouTube, it's stupid. Fix it.
It is actually stupid. It's there. I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot that's wrong. Of things that's wrong with YouTube.
Not the only one. I mean, let's be really honest. It would be great if there was some clearinghouse for a license. Maybe actually this is a great use of crypto technology, not Bitcoin, but you know what I'm talking about. The what's it called? A blockchain. Oh, blockchain. Every license could have a blockchain code that you could just drop into the description or into a field, and then the services could automate the process of just confirming that blockchain code is still a valid license. And it would be automated. It would be streamlined. Okay, I got a business idea. Uh-oh. I can't patent it. So anybody out there listening,
hello, I am listening.
Well, Dean, if you use my idea, we're going to have an issue.
Oh my God.
No, you and I should make it happen together, right, brother? We'll start a business of the licensing verification collective.
Ooh, I like that.
Right? The LVC.
Not MLC, huh?
Well, it goes along with it. So now if you actually have a license, how do we monetize it? Oh, they have to pay for the verification code.
Yeah.
And then YouTube has to pay to use the API to get it. Oh, okay. I'm seeing. I got an idea here.
The lawyer in you is talking right now.
Call me a lawyerpreneur.
Lawyerpreneur. Oh my gosh. Now, I've heard all sorts of rumors as well about they're trying to throw people in jail if you're infringing someone else's music or content. Is there any truth to that? Or how close are we to just, I think the greatest solution is what we preach, you and I preach, don't use what doesn't belong to you.
Right. Yeah.
But on the other hand is what I just talked about, the music streaming services where you pay $5 a month or $19.99 or whatever per month. And you hope that you can use all these hot, beautiful tracks.
Well, you know what?
And not.
Yeah. On that one, if you're going to use that kind of music, if you're going to sign up for one of these services, make sure that your license to use a piece of music doesn't expire just because you stop paying the monthly fees. If they do it both ways. Sometimes it's pay the monthly fee, and as long as you keep paying us, your licenses stay valid. The others say, as long as you were paying at the time that you use the music, you can leave that video up. That's the way you want it to be. Be careful about the other model, so you don't have to keep paying every month. That's not royalty free. That's royalty heavy, right? So, you know, you gotta.
Wait, Gordon, I'm not supposed to laugh so hard. So just go easy.
Oh, am I hurting you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll try not to be such a smile.
Oh my goodness.
But, you know, you brought up the issue of the felony streaming law that they were talking about. So to back up a little bit, at the end of 2020, the whole country was focused on, are we going to get $2,000 or are we going to get $600 in that stimulus package, right? And going back and forth. Meanwhile, in that law that was passed and signed into law, there were two provisions that affect copyright. The first one is called the Case Act, and it sets up a sort of a small claims court for copyright. So we're going to see folks like photographers using this it's an administrative procedure, and I don't know if it's actually constitutional or not. We'll have to wait until somebody objects to it. But it's sort of an opt-in where the parties can say, yeah, let's just work it out in this little informal environment and keep the money involved down low and work it out. I've long advocated for some kind of a parking ticket level of copyright infringement for the inadvertent use of a photo on a website or something like that. Okay. And I think it's a good thing, but we got to see how it shakes out. The Copyright Office has a year to make it happen, and we'll see. So that's called the Case Act. The sort of small claims law. The other act that was part of that was a little more onerous, and I have to admit, I contributed to the panic about it because I made some posts and comments about they're going to make it a felony to stream music, you know, and that's not exactly what the law does. It's called the Protect Lawful Streaming Act, and it's a new section of the criminal code, the Title 18 of the United States Code, not the copyright law, and it targets certain commercial enterprises that are primarily about performing works digitally without authorization. So you know, it might have been aiming at Twitch or something like it, although I don't even think that really fits. But so I'll read you a little clip from an article. It says, it applies to persons that willfully and for purposes of commercial advantage or private personal gain offer to the public a digital transmission service that is, one, primarily designed to or provided for the purpose of publicly performing copyrighted works digitally without lawful authority, and has no commercially significant purpose other than that public performance, or is intentionally marketed to promote its use in that way. So it's really, you know, the most commercial, obvious, you know, hey, use us to infringe copyrights kind of businesses. And it creates a felony in the statute for that. Now, there has always been a felony copyright infringement penalty for the most egregious willful infringements and things. So this just added to it for that performance right. It's always been a violation to you know, make and distribute millions of copies without permission. And so this is just now, if you're streaming, because streaming is the new way things are being done, they needed to close the loophole. So it's not a great law, but it's not it's not as terrible as it sounded at first, and we got alarmed maybe more than is necessary. Again, we'll have to see how it gets enforced and how it shakes out.
So basically, the whole DMCA thing is something that we should avoid, or
yeah. I mean, you don't want to have your stuff taken down under the DMCA or any other law, right? And so the answer to stopping the DMCA takedowns is stop using other people's stuff without permission, and make sure you've got the licenses and can prove it if you do get taken down. But yeah, I do think that the system isn't so great, and we got to get some things in there fixed. But yeah, the DMCA itself isn't a bad law. I mean, I actually think that most of the time when someone who owns a copyright feels like someone's posted something they shouldn't, it's the fast, easy way to get it removed. And then it opens a dialogue with the person who used your stuff without permission. So if you're a music creator, it can be good for you. You've described the scenario where you post your own stuff and get taken down, and that's a little bit anomalous, but it happens often enough that we're talking about it.
Oh my goodness. If you are just joining us, we are talking with attorney Gordon. I'm talking with attorney Gordon Firemark. We're talking about DMCA. And the bottom line is, guys, if you do not have permission to use someone else's music in your content, don't do it. Just don't. Don't risk losing your hard work. You know, I was invited on a stream about 2 weeks ago. Well, it was a pre-recorded thingy, and for a guy that has a lot of copyright questions, and I did my best to answer those questions. But one of the comments, one of the guys, he was just saying like it's okay to use whatever you want to use as long as the video doesn't go viral. I'm like, no, dude, that's a lie. I mean, it's still not yours. Whether your video goes viral or not, you still can get caught. But there's just so many different ideas out there. Like, what's the best source? Like, what's the best website where people can go? I know yours is up where people can book.
Say, man, you're looking at them.
Yeah, looking at.
No, you know what? Honestly, and I am guilty of dispensing legal information online, and yet I will say you shouldn't get your legal information in a Facebook group or a Facebook forum. I mean, and if you do, make sure it's coming from a source that actually knows what they're talking about. The problem is everybody thinks they know what they're talking about in this field, and unless you've gone to law school and spent some time practicing law and you understand this, and by the way, there's plenty of people who went to law school and practiced family law or criminal law who think they get it and don't. So you really do need to talk to somebody who's a bit of an expert. So that's that. Fact situations vary, and bottom line, I say talk to a lawyer. But that said, websites that have good information about this, they're out there. And I'm trying to think of, other than my own, Firemark.com and GordonFiremark.com.
Copyright.gov is a good source, right?
Copyright.gov, they've got some good circulars. You can download PDFs of their explanations of various aspects of the law, usually more to deal with how to register or how long things last and stuff, but the information's there. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, EFF.org, is also a good source of this stuff, although they come from a very libertarian isn't quite the right word, but very, free speech, information should be free kind of a point of view. And so they'll, take it with a grain of salt. Understanding what their point of view is part of, information literacy, I guess. Get out there. I mean, it's okay to start asking around, but everything should be taken with a grain of salt. People often express things the way they want it to be rather than the way the law actually is.
That's a good one. Oh my gosh. I think we have said a lot that someone can really understand what's happening here tonight. Stop using unless you have the permission, don't use it at all. Just don't use it, whether you're on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. And Instagram is the other one that seems to get away with a lot of these different things, because I personally find if I play a certain song on Facebook, they might mute certain part of my video if I play certain songs. If I post that same video on Instagram, it stays up. But
that's
I know it's coming.
Yeah, well, Instagram's owned by Facebook, but they do have some different agreements in place with the record industry, the music industry. And so it may be that, let's face it, an Instagram post is a relatively short thing. You could make a 5-minute Instagram story or something like that, but most of the time the music you're using is in 15-second chunks, right?
Second, yes.
And so it's not as likely that people are going to be tuning in to listen to the whole song on an Instagram post, right? So that it may be that the industry just doesn't care so much about it, and it may be that Facebook has made, or Instagram, I should say, has made some deals that allows for that. And one of the things that Facebook and Instagram have is when they are streaming something, sort of pseudo live, it's different than when it's a recorded play at any time on demand kind of thing. The Instagram stories go away after a day. So it's not ephemeral exactly, but it's not permanent in that sense. So that may be part of why it's treated a little differently there.
Yeah. One last question that just popped in my head, Gordon. When DJs remix songs,
yeah,
and they might not get, you know, a copyright claim or strike or something like that. Once that song is remixed, is that now a new master? Is that now a new recording?
If it's recorded, yeah. One of the sort of issues in this area is when a DJ in a live performance environment is doing remixes and mashups and those kinds of things, the venue is paying for the licenses for the performance, ASCAP and BMI and CSAC,
Sure.
the public performance right. But when it's recorded and then redistributed as MP3s or whatever else, now you've made a mechanical copy, and that's a different license in the music world. So you would need to get mechanicals for that. The problem is you've also, because it's a mashup or whatever, you actually need to get permission. It's not the automatic mechanical license, the compulsory license. So you've got theoretically, you're supposed to go to the publishers and say, I used 43 seconds of this song. Can I have a license? And they can say yes or no. Okay. That's the nature of copyright exclusive rights. So.
But in one sense of the word, it's kind of like a new recording, but you still need the proper license, unless you just put it up on YouTube and the content owner might just put ads on it or something like that.
Yeah.
Which most of them do.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the advantages of the YouTube Content ID system, is that it automates the process of monetizing and getting that money to go to the parties that own the music.
Oh, wow. That is crazy. Oh, shout out to my wife. This interview needs to be sent to YouTube administrators. I did not pay her.
Yeah, me telling them they're stupid. I'll get some nasty phone calls tomorrow.
Yeah.
I didn't say they're stupid. I said the problem is a stupid one.
Yeah, the problem. Gordon, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you for always, pleasure, responding to me, man. This means a lot. I can't wait to repurpose this content for this week and next week's show on my channel. Guys, don't forget you can book Mr. Let me get your website here. Now, podcast release. Are you the owner of that? I did see you on there. Nice.
I am the podcast lawyer. This is one of my main areas of practice. Not my only, but one of my main areas of practice is helping podcasters and live streamers and content creators. And my sort of crusade is to say, look, if you're going to have guests on your show, like Mr. Reynolds is having me on his show and didn't do it, is to get a release form signed or agreed to that gives you permission to record, consent to the recording, and all the uses of it. So, Dean, I'm going to do it for you here right now. You hereby have my consent to record and reuse and embody my performance tonight in any way, shape, or form, any and all media now known or hereafter devised in perpetuity throughout the universe. There you go. So if you can remember all those things, you don't have to do it in writing. You just ask the question and they say yes. So there you go. Get a podcast release. Go over here. It's free. Download your release and use it. The other one is guest release. If you're doing video stuff, you go to guestrelease.com, but it's the same thing.
Awesome. And this is where people can book consultation with you. Go to Firemark.com. They can find you here, book a consultation with you. And the idea is, do not use what doesn't belong to you. Just don't use it. I mean, and always hire a lawyer, guys. They have this thing where they say, I don't want to hire a lawyer because lawyers are super expensive. I know you, and you are expensive. I know that for sure, because you you didn't even deny it.
Dean, it's not about expensive versus cheap. It's about value versus no value.
Woo!
What's it worth to you to sleep at night? What's it worth to you to know that your business is safe and you've done things right and you're not going to get slapped with a major lawsuit. You know, let's face it,
My
a
God.
lawsuit for copyright infringement is a 6-figure venture right out of the gate.
Oh my gosh.
Hiring a
That's
lawyer
lot.
to help you make sure you did it right is maybe 4 figures, if that. I mean, it doesn't have to be tremendously expensive. Getting a little advice can save you an awful lot of money on the back end. So think of it as value. Think of it as investing in your business, just like you would invest in equipment or, facilities, whatever. The legal stuff matters.
No, that's pretty good. Guys, that's our time for tonight. You also can get in touch with me at deanreynoldsmedia.com. On there, you'll find my online courses, and you can book a music consultation with me, and we can go through it. Do not use what doesn't belong to you. Stay safe. Be careful. Only use what belongs to you. I cannot stress that enough. Don't allow losing your stuff. What you said, Gordon?
I said, be excellent to each other, Bill and Ted.
Yes. There's another side to you, Gordon. You're a funny guy.
It's been a long day. I'm punchy.
Oh, my goodness. So Gordon and I are going to chit-chat a little bit in the green room after the show, and this is our time for tonight. And you guys, until next time, same place, Demons Media.